I don't know how much we want to get into this. I shared a video with our policy director from the BroadNet call, Amara, that you spoke about. I'm happy to share that video with you all to save time tonight. You can watch the video, and it really goes through the do's and don'ts of being a 501c3. I mean, it goes to the extent of really explaining amnesty policy to the fact that we don't even call for democracies, and it explains why that is. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about that or show you the video as well, but also to talk about what human rights monitoring will take place in the coming weeks, and then what activists can do at the moment. So does that sound good with folks? Okay. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Ernest to talk about sort of where we are right now.
Hey, good evening again. It's like, oh, phone ring. Good evening again. And all of you know most definitely where we are in what's going on there in Philadelphia. That has transpired over the past 3 to 4 days there. And so we have been actively involved as Amnesty, as we've been looking at these police shootings since back in May with George Floyd, and then Tiana Boyd in Louisville. And so we're continuing to do that observation as Cynthia stated. And then she will speak about, as we go forward, what we'll be looking at in regards to as well armed activities that's taking place during the election coming up. Also, we did, from the gun violence campaign, we did send out a letter to governors and secretary of states across the country requesting that they ban guns at polling locations for this upcoming election, because as we've seen all of the uptick in gun purchases since COVID-19 pandemic has come about, and then also all of the rhetoric that we've been hearing from the administration, from one of the candidates particularly, that has fueled the fire of possible armed militias, armed citizens, et cetera, participating or being active during the election. So we urged those governors and secretary of states to issue those bans. We did have 3 thus far that did issue: Michigan, Virginia, and I believe Pennsylvania was the other one that also issued. Unfortunately, we did lose in Michigan. There was a group of individuals that sued the state, or sued the governor and the secretary of state, Jocelyn Benson, and they did lose, or the governor did lose, because of specifically because of the ban, but the process that she used to enact the ban.
Wait. This means that in Michigan, you can take a gun to the polling place.
Yeah, in Michigan, there are an open carry and a concealed carry state. Yeah. And so any place that allows for a gun to go in, and if that's a polling location, then they can. You know, the same laws in regard to, say, schools or churches still are in place, that they can't bring guns into those buildings. But if they're in a polling location, say maybe at a union hall, and the union hall doesn't have a stipulation of no guns on the premises, then the individual could walk in with a pistol or AR-15 or what have you, exposed, and just walk in. Or they could stand outside of polling locations. And so so in Michigan and many other states right now, that could be the case as well. And so we've been pushing that, and we'll continue to push that throughout the next day or so, as states still can make some last minute declarations or executive orders to do that as well. So we will continue to look and monitor that also. But then specifically, yes.
I was actually going to email you about that. Mm-hmm. Because I was just at a training. I'm going to do observation at a polling place in Pennsylvania, and they said that Pennsylvania law meant that you could do the same as you just explained in Michigan. So I thought when we spoke with the person in the Attorney General's office that he said you had to have a concealed carry permit to take it to the polling place. But I didn't take great notes at that meeting, but they told me that, no, I mean, you can take guns in, there doesn't, as long, I mean, if it's not a church or a school. So I think it would be good to clarify, if anybody took notes at the meeting, and I can follow up with the Attorney General's office, or someone can, because there seems to be some confusion. Somebody said on the call they did a quick search, and some counties are making rules, but across the state, there is no restriction, they said.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we got to follow with that, because that was my understanding as well, that you just said from that meeting we had. So yeah, so gets us to where we are today, and like I said, of the actions that have taken place over the last 3 to 4 days with the shooting of the gentleman there in Philly. And so we have, as Amnesty, on behalf of Amnesty and from the staff, we sent a letter to the governor, to the mayor, and the police chief or commissioner, I believe is the title for the police commissioner, urging twofold. One, urging an immediate, thorough, independent investigation into the shooting, and making sure that the family and community is kept updated on what that investigation is, what is coming out of that as well. And then secondly, in regards to the protesting and the National Guard being deployed into the city as well. And that's the letter that went to the governor in regards to that, of this, the right for peaceful protesting, for the right of the police to make sure that do not punish the peaceful protesters for that small amount of individuals that may be doing whatever things are illegal, and that the law is to protect protesters just as it is to protect anyone else. And so we sent that letter on behalf of Amnesty that went out on, lose my days, what's the day? Thursday? That went out on Tuesday. And so we just got finalized, and I believe Cynthia will probably be sending out, or from her team, we're sending out, we do have an ask for the Philadelphia members, but Pennsylvania members as a whole, to also reach out to the mayor, to the governor, to the commissioner, in regards of reiterating that letter. And then also there's some social media pieces as well that we will be pushing out and asking you to also utilize on social media and or share with family, friends, to also push out and along social media lines also. And so that'll be coming out. We just got it finally vetted right before the call, I guess, about an hour or so. So we'll have that available to send to you probably the next 24 hours, that you'll be able to also push out from actual citizens of Philly, right? And actual citizens of the state of Pennsylvania, to say that, international law, human rights need to still be part of the law of why all of this is going on, and that we need to make sure that there is some thorough, prompt investigation into this police shooting, as we continue to see this happening across the country. Because even, in the same time frame, excuse me, we had a shooting here in Waukegan, Illinois, which is just 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so north of Chicago, in the same situation, a police shooting that took place there. So it's a consistent piece that we're seeing. So we are taking place, participating or making a voice in what's going on there in Philly. And we are continuing to monitor overnight when all the protesting and thing is going on as well. So if there's anything that you see or think we need to speak on or whatever, please feel free to reach out to Cynthia, to myself, and we will continue to elevate the situation as we go into next Tuesday as well.
My son lives at around 50th and Woodland, which is right around the area.
Yeah.
The supermarkets are all boarded up. It's like they've already closed down the place ahead. Yeah. It's like the election violence is already starting.
Yeah.
So he said that he doesn't see, there's not a whole lot of protests. It's very localized,
Okay.
but everyone's freaking out. See, the problem in Philadelphia is we have a terrific mayor and we have a terrific attorney general, but the police department behaves like an unregulated militia. And this is the problem in a lot of places.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we can send, and the governor is pretty terrific too. You know, this is the thing. I mean, we can protest to all these people and they already know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue is trying to you know, the police pretend they're a union, and Frax knows what a union is. They're not a union. They're a bunch of thugs pretending to be a union. You know, I mean, it's really, really appalling. And I haven't heard a good solution to that, but some genius must have some kind of idea how to break that. You know, stack the Supreme Court. I don't know. But that's the issue.
Yeah, we actually, a few months back, our group, when was it, guys? I don't know. It was like right after kind of the Black Lives Matter movement really took off. So maybe like June, maybe our July meeting, we drafted like a few like recommendations, and then we ended up sending it to the mayor's team of what we wanted to see our local police force as and what we wanted them to change. And you know, we never really heard anything back, obviously, but we did take that step to really show that we're as this Amnesty group in Philadelphia, that we are not okay with what's going on, and that we would love to be part of the solution if we could, but
yeah,
I'm not sure how much we can. And also, I wanted to touch on the you talking about the National Guard being deployed here, because like I said, I work for the city, and I was actually in a call this morning where someone brought up the fact that the National Guard was being deployed, and people had a freaking heyday about it. People were going off about it, but I don't think that doesn't come from the city though, right? That comes from the feds, I assume.
From the governor.
From the governor. So
yeah, the governor.
So Tom Wolf decided that the National Guard needed to be sent here.
Correct. Yeah. The governor can deploy or call up the National Guard and disperse them as well. And then the challenge is, you know, like how do they communicate, or who do they work with and for once they hit the ground? You know, are they now an extension, ex facto extension of the police and doing that, or are they actually coming in as peacekeepers kind of thing? And so
that's what they said in the meeting this morning, is that the director of my office was saying, you know, they're here as like peacekeepers per se, but I've never seen a peacekeeping operation actually work out to be peaceful. So I don't know. Yeah. And I'm just thinking back again to like, you know, June, when the last time the National Guard was here, it just like wasn't good, you know, and all the bike racks and stuff that they put up in downtown are still there. I mean, that stuff hasn't moved. I don't know. Crazy.
Right. Yeah. So
what I read, the mayor actually asked for the governor to call the National Guard. So it wasn't the governor just doing
there was
it.
a lot of looting going on in that whole area too. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, the people set up businesses in poor areas, and then these rioters come in and, you know, they drive them out. We had someone come to our meeting once that Ron and I have known for 40 years. And Ron used to be our coordinator. Amara is actually not co-coordinator, she's the coordinator. Let's get that straight. Yeah. But
you've been drafted, Amara.
but this woman's father was an immigrant from Greece, and he set up a supermarket in North Philadelphia, and someone came in and shot him dead. So what happens? You don't have a supermarket anymore. I mean, that's what happened in Camden. It's all the businesses ran away. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful, absolutely awful. So I don't know whether the national, well, you know, you do what you have to do to stop the rioting.
But I think, and I mean, it could be a long conversation. I want to take up the whole Cynthia's whole comment. But I mean, that's, you know, the rioting and that type of thing, the protests are just a symptom of a bigger issue. that needs to be addressed in communities across the country. And so, you know, we can't look at the protest activities, the looting, as isolated incidents without dealing with the root cause of why folks feel that they need to react this way. And so that's why, like, the gun violence campaign is very essential to the work that we do. Our work around police accountability is essential and has to continue, not only when there's a shooting that takes place on behalf of police, but all the time. And so we have to look at how do we fix or correct, rebuild, whatever the term is, those issues and symptoms and things that's in these communities that have been overlooked for years that lead to the point that folks want to react when now they see another individual shot and killed by the police that's unarmed. When, you know, they still don't have fresh food in their neighborhood to eat, but you can build a stadium in their neighborhood and take tax dollars to do that. So so we have to look at all of the pieces of this puzzle in order to rectify what those symptoms that's taking place from the other pieces as well. But I'll stop there. But yeah, so you will be receiving some. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to know if there's anything we can do if there's intimidation going on at the polls on Tuesday.
Right.
If there's people standing around with guns at the polls, or they're scaring people away, or is there?
Yeah.
What do you call the local police? Or what do you do?
Yeah, you can call the local police. There's a good number of election protection programs that are going on as well. But most definitely, if there is, especially letting us know, and I'll make sure you have our information as well, so we can notate that. We will possibly have some folks on the ground in certain places as well from Amnesty as observers that will be observing some of the activities or possible, you know, violence that may take place or protesting that may take place as well. But most definitely, immediately, I would call, you know, local authorities to, if you do see individuals that are doing intimidation, especially with guns at polling locations come Tuesday.
The thing I anticipate happening in Pennsylvania is if the election is close, you know, the count will be going on for another week, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a scenario for turmoil, you know? And,
most definitely.
You know, and the other thing is, you know, the violence in the street. I mean, you don't know who's doing the violence. You know, a lot of it can be provocateurs, or, you know, you just don't know who the actors are, you know, and it gets blamed on
peaceful protesters.
Yeah, it gets blamed on the protesters, and it may not be the protesters at all that are perpetrating the violence, you know.
Right, yeah.
This might be a good time to talk a little bit about protecting the right to peaceful protest, because that will be a main focus for us. It has been for the last, you know, since the murder of George Floyd and the disruption of protests that we've seen. So does that sound good to folks?
Yeah, good, yeah.
I'm going to share my screen because I have some slides. Actually, these were presented on the call that Amara is referring to. And so basically, I just want to give you some visuals to look at. But, you know, back in, gosh, was it July? Or it was in early August, actually, Amnesty released a report that is called the World is Watching Report. And so this World is Watching Report is really, it's focusing on, sorry, here's the report. This report, I hope many of you have seen this, but this report has documented over 100 violations that have been afflicted upon Black Lives Matter protesters, journalists, medics, street medics, and street legal advisors who are out there to help protesters know their rights. And so we've documented a number of individual human rights violations that have happened. Two of the big cases from this report that we are continuing to work on, and I'll provide you a link where you can access this information as well, is that of Black Lives Matter protester Derek Ingram, who's in New York City, who has been basically, his case is very powerful. He basically has been under surveillance by the police for his protest. Some random charge has been brought up against him. And so Amnesty has documented that case, and we're really working on behalf with Derek to really call for those charges to be dropped. But talk about intimidation. You got to read his story. It's very powerful. And then the other case that we've been working on directly is Andrea Sohori, who is a journalist from the Des Moines, from Iowa, from the Des Moines paper there, the Des Moines Register. And she basically was profiled at a protest and picked up. And again, fraudulent charges have been brought up against her that she's fighting, and we're actually fighting with her to have those charges dropped. But the report really shows us like the complete disrespect that we've seen widespread across the country around the right to protest, and police, law enforcement, and National Guard, you know, really observing what are the rights to peaceful protest and what do we have, what protections are there in place. So one of the recommendations from the report, Amnesty always has recommendations when we do reporting, is you know, to basically make sure that this report gets into the hands of local police, into governor's hands, mayors, city officials, because the report outlines what are the rights to peaceful protests, and that's something that we really understand. That kind of education really needs to be built into every single community throughout our country, worldwide, but just looking at the U.S. right now. Really looking at the local landscape and realizing that a lot of our city officials and police do not know what the standards are to peaceful protests. So it's really important that Amnesty has been here to document this. So this is continuing. We actually are going to be doing protest monitoring throughout the next few weeks. We have been working with the global section of Amnesty International. This is it's really powerful to be a part of a global organization, because Amnesty International has basically coordinated with our global crisis team from the IS, where we have experts in explosives and experts who really have been in countries throughout the world seeing the kind of violence that we could possibly see, coming to the US, and some have already landed and they're stationed. We're also working with AI Canada, AI Mexico, to set up a system of digital monitoring. And so part of the report from The World is Watching, this report, a lot of that documentation, we were also able to come in from digital monitoring. So the IS has created this map. I'm not sure if this looks familiar to people, but this is an interactive map that the IS started to document where there were human rights violations taking place at peaceful protests throughout the country this summer. So this is an interactive map. So we will be using this map, again, to sort of monitor what's happening over the next few weeks. So this is just a tool that is online. I'm going to direct people there. And then in terms of, just trying to see if there's anything, I'll stop sharing. But in terms of what's happening is right now, as I mentioned, we are anticipating violence. We are anticipating a disruption to peaceful protest. So we are going to be coordinating digital monitoring. We're not asking people to go on the streets to protest it themselves. People are more than welcome to do whatever they do in their own capacity. But you know, we're also sort of following the guidelines of the local health in terms of just being in COVID era. But also the fact is that we really can't advise people on how to safely protest right now, because we just don't know what to expect. So we are setting up digital monitoring teams where we will be capturing information about protest disruptions and violations happening in real time. As Ernest mentioned too, we do have some IS crisis response team already deployed to the US who, if we find that there are pockets of areas that people need to go to, we are ready to deploy those trained human rights observers to be in those spaces. And then we also know that many folks are going to be out and seeing things themselves. And so we want to make sure that activists are aware that if you are out and you do come across a situation where you are able to document it, or it's on, you know, your cell phone or a visual or something from the news that we may not be hearing about, please let us know that. And the best way to communicate that would be to communicate to the field organizer that you may work with. I know that your field organizer right now is on maternity leave, but I will put, you also have Ebony Brickhouse, I believe you have, okay. So Ebony will be the point of contact. So in case you do come across something that you think is, you know, something that you want Amnesty research team to look at, we are getting set up to be able to respond to that. So again, in terms of like the right to peaceful protest, Amnesty is really concerned about what, you know, making sure that that is protected. And we're not asking folks to go out to join in the protest with your Amnesty capacity, but really to just be mindful and be safe as possible. Any questions about that piece? I kind of went through it really fast.
So what do? We call her? We email her?
You can email her. Yeah, I'll give you the email address. And you can also email me too, and I'll put my email right in the chat.
Yeah.
Ebony's included in our group emails too. I sometimes like blind copy everyone, but if she is, she does know what's going on, but I can give you her email address too.
Yeah. And I also forward you, Eve and Amara, that I forward you both the action that Ernest was referring to that's going out, that we were sending out to Philly members. And it's basically calling on the National Guard to adhere to the rights to peaceful protest. You know, that's really that's what we're really monitoring here right now. So
I'll send that out as well to everyone.
So do we walk around with our Amnesty International t-shirts?
no, no.
Make people behave? No, definitely not. Okay.
No, we're really advising.
No from everyone.
It makes you a target, right, Suzanne?
Even our own observers will not be in bright yellow t-shirts.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're treating this like how they would go into countries that they've been in
secret, right? Okay.
with violence.
Yeah.
So again, though, we are not planning to have in-person monitoring unless we see a level of violence that we are. And then those people that will be going out are people who are like professionally trained crisis, you know, in elections as well, monitoring and so forth, but really trained professionals.
Where are they?
I can't really disclose too much more.
No,
Like
okay.
But they are here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, this key states that we're really watching too are, you know, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Florida, and Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
The four states.
Yeah. So, I mean, so it's really good that we're having this conversation now, and to know, like, if you have any questions that come up, you can even, any of us on the call, like, you can reach out to. You know, we all work as a team, and we're, you know, we want you also to see us as part of your team there. And so one of the pieces of the conversation tonight, which I don't think we'll have time to get into, but maybe I could share the video, but is our policy specialist, Vienna Colucci, who's just phenomenal encyclopedia of policy, helps really put things into perspective of why we do things and why we don't do certain things. We do have a 9-minute video clip of her explaining the election's do's and don'ts from the event, Amara, that you were talking about. So I can forward that on to you if you want to share with the rest of the group.
Absolutely.
Because that really gets into the nitty gritty of like the policy piece here that we're not going to have time to get into. And then, of course, as Ed put in the chat, all of this is sort of like these actions that Ernest talked about. There's a toolkit. Letters to the editor are something that we're really encouraging people to do. All of this is in the Defend Freedom Toolkit, which is in the link to the website that I think Ed put in the chat. Yeah. And that is the go-to page. It's the most up-to-date information that you'll find on what's happening is on that page.
Right.
Anything did I miss? Activism Conference, not to switch gears, but like in 2 weeks after the elections, we will have our national, you know, what we used to call the regional conference. It's now for this year, the Activism Conference, because we're doing one virtual. This will be 2 weeks after. And so we have a solid program, but we're also preparing the program to be flexible in case we have to adapt to what's happening at that moment. There will be regional town halls on that Sunday where there'll be about 45 minutes that we have left really open space right now. So we can either, know about what the first 100 days are going to look like for an ask around a Biden win, or what the first 100 days are going to look like around a Trump. I can't even say the other word, but it's just, it's just like, sorry, I just showed my bias here, but it's really a tough time that I know we're all in right now. And so it's really hard to fathom what that continuing 4 years could look like.
I've had people call me about what are we going to do if there's, martial law or something in the streets, are we going to go out, I mean, people are talking about that. People on the left in Philadelphia are talking about that, I mean, there's a lot of discussion, I mean, people have plans if something happens, So, I mean, I think people intend to be nonviolent, but who knows where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, from our perspective, your safety, our safety is just, we just don't know what level of violence this could take. So safety is a big protocol here, and we're exercising that with our staff, with the IS monitoring team. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Can someone say something cheerful?
I know.
Christmas is coming.
There you go. It's like, oh my goodness.
I know. I've been, ever since actually, sorry to burst your bubble, Cynthia and others, but ever since that election preparedness call a few weeks ago, I have been full of anxiety about what's going to happen after Tuesday, because I didn't actually really think about it. If I'm being totally honest, I wasn't thinking about what would happen with depending on who wins, but I'm a little nervous, I have to say, about what's going to happen. So we'll see, but.
Well, it's nice that the Amnesty is here as an institution that's well established and staffed and it's functioning, and so it's a modest. It can have an impact.
Yeah, it's.
You don't have to recreate the wheel,
Because I'm seeing so many attacks on Amnesty now. I mean, what was this nonsense? It's anti-Semitic. It's like, what are you talking about? And then it was something was kicked out of India. I subscribe to the Times of London, and the comments people made about it, it's like, what are you talking about?
Well, and that is why it's so important for the 501c3, do's and don'ts to really be mindful of that, because we definitely are being watched, and if we do something that could put us in jeopardy of that status, then we could easily, I would hate to think, but something could happen like what happened with AI India. And that's a worst case scenario, obviously, but we just have to be careful of making sure that people are aware that, what Amnesty does do and does not do with around elections. So I forward you, Amara, that video going over this, what Vienna Colucci would have done on this call tonight. If you could forward that to folks, that'd be great.
Definitely.
And I will say something positive. I mean, just before I got on this call, I was watching one of the films on Friday night from the night before the Activism Conference. At Friday the 13th, we're going to show the film Nazarin, which is about Nazarin Sotoudeh, who is the Iranian human rights defender. And what a powerful, powerful film that is, because she is a powerful woman. She's, just done so much for women's rights and global human rights. But her husband will be joining us that Friday night. But that film is just really a testament to the power and the strength that it takes an individual to really fight these regimes. And I think if there's any strength to be found, join us Friday night to watch the film, the 13th, because I think we can find strength in her struggle. It's just like, I'm getting the chills thinking about it. But so, yeah, so that's, I guess that kind of what brings us back to Amnesty, those moments where we do see like how these actions, our collective actions, can lead to positive social change.
Absolutely.
It takes a while, but
Definitely.
Well, I mean, I've seen positive change myself. I told you about that. Now I joined this group, well, because I've known Ron for a long time. And these were 20 refugees, Congolese refugees, just arrested. It was a pretty awful story. And a lot of the reasons that they got out was because there was an association with Amnesty International, which was interesting. And I was in Zambia 4 years ago, and these cops, I was driving to a refugee camp, and these cops suddenly pulled us over, and they were talking to the driver, and suddenly the driver said, well, Amnesty International. And the cops said, bloody Amnesty International, go, 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 go. It was like, so you got me out of having to pay a bribe. So I'm very grateful to Amnesty International. I mean, it's a wonderful group. Thank you so much for all the great work you do.
yeah, no, you're a part. Thank you all, and do know that the global movement is all eyes on the U.S. right now. It's very surreal.
Oh, I know. I know my family, and I mean, they can't believe I live in the United States. It's like what were you thinking? So, I know, and every bad thing that happens is copied. See, this is the real problem, is that people are watching, and they're paying attention to the bad things that happen, and they're following them, and that is the most frightening thing of all. Well, this time next week, we're going to be in great shape, right?
Right.
None of this is going to happen. I need to go to a Nigerian church and do some hallelujahs, and everything will behave itself. It's great. Love it. Yep.
Oh, sorry, Cynthia, were you going to say something?
No, I just want to say thank you for inviting us, Amara.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you so much for coming. I so appreciate you talking to us about this. It's so important, and especially in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania right now, there's a lot going on. So thank you guys so much for talking about all encompassing it all. So I really appreciate it. And I'll be sure to send out all the follow-up stuff. And then Cynthia, do you mind if I provide your email in the follow-up email in case people have questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, please do.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Okay, so we kind of regroup as an Amnesty group, like our Amnesty group, to do some Amnesty stuff. You guys are more than welcome to stick around, but don't feel the need to. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Thank you very much. Lovely seeing you all. Putting faces to names. Yes.
I know, right?
I know.
Amara, it's really nice to meet you, and you get my weekly updates.
I do.
So I hope you
I know you're
share
that
them with
man.
all of your members.
Yeah, that's it. When Susanna was just saying that we're putting faces to the name, yours, I was like, wow, never saw it before, but it finally did.
Yeah.
For
If
real.
you have any other members who really want to get it, just send me their emails and I'll put them onto the list.
I will,
Get it
definitely.
directly. But
Bye,
anyway, thanks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay, good day. Good day.
Bye-bye, Ed.
Thanks.
Good day.
Yeah.
Hello,
Well, that was
everyone.
really nice. Because you're good at this, Amara.
Am I?
None of this co-coordinator business. It's like, oh.
No, I like I said like 4 times through that call, I went to that election preparedness thing. David sent it to me actually a few weeks ago, and oh my God, I was like so taken aback from their presentation, because they in their presentation they outlined like the different circumstances that they could see happening from the election, and one was like a Biden win, a Trump win, then it was like civil war was one of them. They were like going so deep, and I immediately was like, oh, my anxiety is so high. I was like, we got to get past the next few weeks. But I thought they were super interesting.
Yeah, well, I think the issue is really what side the police are going to be on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are the police going to see themselves as protecting us, which of course they do a rotten job of, or are they going to see themselves as, you know, Hitler's brown shirts,
Yeah.
being an independent militia?
Yeah, you don't imagine that happening in America, but look where we are now, you know?
You know something? It was impossible that it happened in Germany, and that's what people don't realize.
No, it's true.
Germany was the most civilized country in the planet.
And the Jews were assimilated, right?
And absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Intermarried and everything, yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, my children, their ancestors were Jewish, yeah.
Right.
And they survived the Holocaust, yeah.
Yeah, and then Spain, you know, Spain, 1936, the socialists were elected to power, they won the election, and the army invaded from Morocco, you know, and they had a 3-year civil war, you know.
Right.
It's just, you know, the army did not accept the verdict of the election.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Spain didn't have much experience with democracy, of course, but our democracy is limited in America, you know.
You know, we need a new constitution because it's a stupid constitution. If you get these drunk frat boys who are trying to interpret it, you know, it's blasted stupid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, all I know is that we do not need anything else crazy happening in 2020. That's for sure. So my fingers are crossed that things are, God, this has been like I mean, like I'm only 23 years old and this is the craziest year I think that I will ever have in my lifetime.
Let's hope.
I know.
And we're not even talking about climate change.
I know. Exactly. The big issues haven't even come up yet.
Boy.
My God. Just quickly, while we're all still here too, I made a Google Drive folder for the October meeting, and I'll throw all the resources that the speakers shared with us into this folder as well as email them to you all. But in the folder right now are 2 letters from Dorothy, who I'm trying to unmute. Dorothy, if you can hear us, I think if you press *6, you'll unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I want to tell Dorothy I sent all her letters out today this morning. So thank you for all those letters, Dorothy. You know, you really work hard on those.
Wow, that's great.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go. Very good.
I had a hard time to unmute. Yeah, okay. So you want me to go ahead?
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, we have a brand new prisoner of conscience. We have not been working on before. And I selected this prisoner from the list that was given to me by the AI office because he is from Africa, and I know many of us have our hearts in Africa. And he has, of course, not advocated violence. He is a true prisoner of conscience. No other group is working on him at all. We are the only ones now. And it's very well researched, and I think we'll get a lot of support from the Amnesty office, who helped enormously to get this whole thing going. So these are all the reasons why I think it's a very good case for us. So he is from Zimbabwe. His name is Itai P. Zamara. He's a journalist and pro-democracy activist. He was before. He is no longer active. Before, he was imprisoned in March 2015. And so nobody knows where he is. He was suddenly disappeared. So he was, before his imprisonment, leader of the pro-democracy protest group in Zimbabwe, which is called OAUS, standing for Occupy Africa Unity Square. And he has been very vocal on the issues of economic conditions in Zimbabwe, corruption, and I'm coming to more things. He has been active in just the general freedom of speech, of course, and against forcibly abductions in the country. So he has been targeted by state security agents, beaten, abducted, and unlawfully detained. And there was very, very little progress in the country itself. His family, of course, to establish his whereabouts. We can write to his wife, who is very much trying to get him out of prison, and just get everybody active in the country. She will be delighted when she hears of us. We can do this soon. And so the letter is writing to many different authorities, and I will go to those and present them to you, but you have all the letters. I sent them out to everybody. So we are asking for the investigation of his disappearance, then to bring those suspected of criminal responsibility for the disappearance to justice, and then to in fair trials, of course, but so that they are really tried. And then we want to ensure that he's not subjected to torture, of course. And then generally we request that the authorities in Zimbabwe and the arbitrary arrest in this country, and that they abide to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, defenders, right of freedom of expression. So that's what we are all asking for, and bring those suspected of responsibility for violations to account, and so on. So the authorities we are writing to this time is the Commissioner General of the Police, Zimbabwe's Republic Police. Then the letters go to the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission in Zimbabwe. Then they go to the Minister of Home Affairs, and they go to President of the Republic of Zimbabwe. His name is Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. And last but not least, as always, to the U.S. Ambassador of Zimbabwe, and you have emails, so you can send it all by email. I believe every single one has an email address, if I'm correct. If not, then you will have to mail it by airmail or fax it. But I don't think there are fax numbers. But, oh, here, the first one to the commissioner. There's a fax number, there's no email. So you will figure that out. So you will have to sign these letters, and then let me know so that I can make a count how many letters were sent and then I can just send the total count of letters to the AI office. I have the name. I think her name was Laura, if I remember correctly. Mara may remember. We had correspondence with her. I CC'd Amara to almost everything, I believe. So it would be good to tell me. I just send 2 or 3 or 4 letters on his behalf, and then I'll collect them after each meeting or the end of the month and inform them so that they have the count. They really need to know what's going on. So, and the second thing I took care of again is the Urgent Action Network. One moment, please. So this time it's Nigeria, and there are 2 letters you have. One is to the ambassador, and there is an email, and the other one is to the president. And right now, I forgot whether there's an email. So there was a big peaceful protest movement in Nigeria on October 20th. That's very, very recent. Also, urgent actions, of course, they're very recent, and you have to react immediately. By the way, my letters were already all sent out, and one Amnesty member, I forgot his name, also did it. So, and it's now at the office. But he wrote it, and he wrote for the POC. So for the urgent action, it's Nigeria, very, very fresh. So if one reacts immediately, it may help people being just tortured and killed, because that goes very fast in these countries. So there has to be really an avalanche of responses from Amnesty International, and that has often helped. The more people, the better. So really important that you do something as soon as possible. So these protesters protested against police brutality, which is not new to us here in the US. And so they asked for so the police brutality was mainly executed by extrajudicial executions and extortions by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. That's the unit of Nigerian police forces fighting violent crimes. So the protesters asked police reform, and that live ammunition, water cannons, and so on, beatings and arrests were stopped, and of course that they abide to the rights of life, dignity, and peaceful assembly. So the letter calls on the end of the killings and excessive force, on a prompt, thorough, impartial, effective, and transparent investigation, and then against unlawful killings, and then access to justice of the protesters, and so rape and torture and extortion. So that's the urgent action, and so we'll continue with new urgent actions, usually at 3 or 4. This time it's only 1. And then each time at each meeting, we'll continue adding more addresses of authorities where to send the letters on behalf of the POC to. And then we'll start approaching the family of the POC and see what we can do there. And especially, I mean, we can send postcards to his wife, for example, so we can prepare that a little bit later, and so that they know we are trying to help them. This may be a big help, and so I will soon go to more actions on this case.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dorothy, for all your work. I will make sure that everything, again, is in this Google Drive folder so that when we send it out, everything's kind of centralized and easy to do. And Dorothy, I'll make sure to tell everyone again to let them know when you send the letters. And I think Frank said he sent them, right? You sent all the letters you said?
I sent them. I'll send Dorothy an email.
Perfect. There we go.
I sent them.
Well, the situation, I was the guest of the police commissioner of Lagos 10 years ago. I stayed with his family for several days because I just come back from Sierra Leone with the niece of who is now the ambassador to Sierra Leone, who was an advisor to the police commissioner of New York City. So I stayed. It was interesting. I've been to Nigeria about 6 times, although not recently. But the problem is always that Nigeria is the most capitalist country in the planet. You just, I mean, everyone's a hustler, and you're either making huge amounts of money or you're making nothing. And they pay the cops absolutely nothing. And the reason you become a cop is so that you can steal, so that you can stop police cars and find them. I mean, they certainly don't all do that, but most of them do. And I've been in cars where, you know, 2 cops stop you at the same time and they're arguing with each other because they both want a bribe, and they kind of know. It's a very strange situation. So, but this SARS thing is even worse. So here you have a situation where you don't have an effective police force. So here they've started, well, let's get a better police force. And they're worse. And so, but this is horrendous what's happening in Nigeria. There's no question about that. But, you know, I mean, Nigeria has a whole history of that, though.
Yeah.
You know, the Civil War in 1967, that started after 30,000 Igbos were murdered. 30,000. So, I mean, that's the British, and it's oil. It's all about oil.
That's what I was going to say.
It's all about oil. Yeah, the oil companies give 30% of their revenue to the Nigerian government. And what does the Nigerian government do with it? Guess. They put it in expensive handbags, Harvard educations. It doesn't trickle down. Although they do have some infrastructure, but it's just not funded properly. So I mean, it's corrupt all the way through, because that's the way it runs, and it's very tragic. And it was the fault of the British. My ancestors totally screwed it up. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I was in Syria in 1970. Yeah.
Oh, that's when it was in 1970, right at the end of the war. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
yeah. Wow, that would have been an interesting time. But Nigeria was still rich then, though. They still had pharmaceutical companies, and the Naira was worth something. Yeah, the Naira collapsed in 1986. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there only for a short while. By the way, I had my wrong earphone in my ear. Could you hear me when I was presenting the letters?
Yes, I hear you.
Perfectly.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Now it should be much better. I made a mistake because one of my two earphones it doesn't work.
That's okay.
I had the wrong one in the ear, and it also doesn't have the mic right next to it. Okay, good. So there was another.
So wait a minute.
disaster.
Okay, so we can send. We just need immediately to send emails to these people. That's what I think.
Yep.
Email addresses. Okay, I'll do that as soon as we get
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Okay.
I did also too, before we get off, I did want to talk to, well, I guess just the three of you that are here, because the next 2 months are kind of weird with the holidays. So did we just want to move all of our meetings up a week? So like our next.
Well, what we do? No, in November and December we always have it on the previous week.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yep.
Okay.
Sounds
So we're technically going to see each other again in like 3 weeks.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can celebrate the election.
Yeah, I know. Fingers crossed. I was thinking I was going to say, I was going to ask what we should talk about next time, but I think that we should wait and see what's going on first before we.
Well, what I would really like is for, I'm going to be, it's on election day, I'm going to be by myself with the cat, and I wouldn't mind being on some kind of call with someone or other, with a whole lot of people, just sort of finding out what's going on all around the place.
I know.
I mean, I can send out a link if anyone's interested in joining, because I think we really need to know what's going on.
Yeah, Susanna, if you want to set that up, I can email it to everyone in the.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because I tell you, I'm a wreck, and
a mental health session, right?
Yeah.
I'm a wreck, and there's no reason for me to be a wreck. I mean, but I am.
So I have a question. How many are we right now here on the phone? I mean, in the meeting.
Yeah, there's only 4 of us.
4 of us only right now. So 2 left, yeah. And when is the next meeting?
It'll be November 19th.
November 19th.
So I'll set up the Zoom right away, and I'll send it to you, Amara, so you've got it.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Because I can schedule in advance.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, because obviously, it was the field. I used my terminology wrong. It's the field organizers who have been giving me these Zoom links, but they give them to me and they work for like 2 months, and then all of a sudden they don't work.
And then it doesn't work. Well, mine'll work.
Perfect. That's all we need, a working Zoom link.
I got a deal. It was like $100 for 12 months. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like it's normally $14 a month. I just thought, okay, that's pretty good.
No, and especially with the way things are going, it seems like we might be on Zoom forever.
Yeah, I have a Zoom link also for my building, so we can use mine too, if need be.
Awesome. Good to know we have some backup here.
Frank, you could be on CNN or something. You've got the bookcase behind you. You've got everything.
There we go.
And is that a sewing machine?
Yeah, my wife. Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
She's a home worker, right?
Yeah.
Like in the old days, right?
That is really cool. Yeah. Wow. I've got the death mask of the Queen of Benin.
I see. Very good.
Yeah.
Protecting you?
Absolutely. No, she tells me to behave myself every morning. It's like, behave. She's very stern, even after death. And behind me is my avocado tree, which is stays there all the time.
That's good.
Okay. Well, Susanna, if you want to email me just a little bit more information about what you're thinking for election night, I can send it out to the group, and I can probably join for a little bit too. It's going to be a night that we want moral support, right?
Well, I can just leave it on. I mean, I apparently with my wonderful Zoom Pro, I can stay on for 30 hours.
Oh, wow.
Which, doesn't really sound like something I want to do, but that's the sort of flexibility there is. So people can come and go.
Okay, perfect.
And I can hand over hosting to everyone else as well. So,
Okay.
People can come and go, and they can, invite people if they want to. Okay, we can do that.
Good, yes.
Lovely to see you both. Lovely to see you, Frank. Yeah, I forgot about that letter that you wrote. I mean, and nothing happened. Yeah. I mean, it would be so nice to figure out a way of breaking the back of the police unions, but I haven't heard of a way of doing it because they pretend they're unions and they're not unions.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm sorry, I have to go.
Okay,
good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Goodbye, Dorothy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who's in the fire union, African American guy. You know, they have a separate fraternity for the black members. You know, and
Good Lord.
the white, you know, the white leader of the firefighters union, you know, endorsed Trump, and then there was a revolt among the, you know, the black firefighters in Philadelphia, you know, and they demanded you know, a revote in the membership. So, and the same things happened in the police union in Philadelphia. I don't know, maybe 30% of the police in Philadelphia are black.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they don't support the white police union president, you know. So you know, he doesn't speak for, you know, he doesn't speak for the black members at all, you know. Just same in the, it's the same in the firefighters union, you know. So it's you know.
So you're either black or you're Irish.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, it's interesting.
New York.
The black firefighters got in late. The police have had black policemen, you know, longer. You know, they're more black policemen now, percentage-wise. But black firefighters, the guy, one of the door people in my building, he's a retired police firefighting captain, you know, African American. He was one of the first, you know. So he's a door person part-time, you know, just for, you know, spending money. So, but you know, he tells me what's going on. It's interesting.
What I find is fascinating is when you find police murdering people. I've seen when Asians have done it, they immediately apologize, they're put in jail, they lose their job.
Yeah.
But the white guys, it's like, no, we didn't do it, he something or other. Like there's no sense of no sense of accountability. I mean, I've seen that. I mean, that's a huge generalization.
It's the history of this country, you know, that's how it works, I guess.
When a long time ago, maybe 35 years ago, I mean, we all had these word processors called Wangs. I don't know if you remember Wang.
I remember Wang.
Yeah, everyone had a Wang. Every department at the University of Pennsylvania had a Wang. And this guy used to come and repair them. And he had been a cop. And I remember sitting, and he told me his whole story. He had been a cop and he'd killed someone. And he didn't get into trouble, but he just couldn't live with himself anymore. He couldn't sleep. And so he got a job as a Wang. He just told me that.
Yeah.
Told me how upset he was. And then, of course, it's the normal reaction.
Yeah, really.
So these guys that are saying, oh, no, it's not my fault. I mean, they are cold-blooded killers.
It is a complicated job. I mean, it really is. And I mean, I can appreciate that, especially in the city. There's a lot of violence and all that. And it requires, you know, a lot of maturity and training and all that. And, you know, I don't think a lot of them get that training that they need. And
well, a lot of them come straight from the military.
Yeah.
I remember talking with a cop in Germantown, a black cop at, and he was, because I'm on the board of a veterans museum in Germantown.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about that, ACES.
Yeah.
And this guy, he'd been, you know, he'd been in the military, and he was honored for that at our function. And he told me that he felt much less safe in North Philadelphia than he did in Afghanistan, which I thought was very interesting. You know, that amount of terror. I knew this little kid. Our glass washer, she had 3 little boys, and the middle one, the little genius, Hakim, he was so cute. Well, he was driving his car one day about 15 years ago, and someone didn't like the way he was parking, and they just shot him dead.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's the kind of ridiculous violence. I mean, you know, I mean, there are things going on, and when you have a gun and you're not quite right in the head, you can do some pretty awful things.
The level of violence in this country is out of
control. Yeah,
it really is. It's you know, well, this is United States. It's always been a violent country. I mean, 19th century, the same thing. You know,
yeah,
a lot of gun ownership and all that. You know, but it's part of the culture for whatever reason. You know.
But you're in a safe area.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. It's. I live right. It's funny. It's funny. I live right on the edge of the city. I live a block from Philadelphia, in Cheltenham, which is, you know, middle-class neighborhood. But the people who are right along the edge, of course, the property values have fallen over the last 40 years. So our building is a cheap building, you know?
Yeah.
So now our building, you know, it was a Jewish building up until, you know, 15 years ago. And now the building is beginning to change because
it's affordable.
The neighborhood. Yeah. So, you know, now we're getting African-American members and we're getting some Asian families, and it's, you know, it took a while, but, you know, the building's beginning to reflect what's in the neighborhood, you know? So it's interesting.
Yeah, because I thought you were in Germantown. So you're right off the City Line Avenue.
Right off Cheltenham Avenue. North, yeah,
no,
Cheltenham, yeah, it's just north of the city. If you follow Broad Street all the way to the end, you come to Cheltenham, and that's where Lucretia Mott lived, and you know, it's interesting neighborhood. There's the neighborhood she lived in. She moved from the city to Cheltenham. It was called Shelton Hills at the time. So she and her husband had a farmhouse. You know, it was a stop on the Underground Railroad, of course, and her son-in-law donated his land, you know, which is next to hers, to the United States government to train Black troops. And Camp William Penn was built in Cheltenham, Shelton Hills, where the, you know, one of the you know, 3 Black regiments were trained there.
Incredible.
During the Civil War. So all that's left is the gate to the old Camp William Penn is still here, you know, and they have a celebration here every year for that. So, and then after the Civil War, the son sold the land to African Americans. So there was a town that was built, you know, that took the name Lamont, you know, some years later. It was called Camptown, and it was an African American village, you know, right here. So there's a historic African American neighborhood, you know, that's been here since 1850, you know, that's just on the edge of Philadelphia. And so there's a lot of interest, and there's a few buildings left, you know, from that time. So the township has some interesting history, you know. There's a lot of abolitionists here, you know, in the 19th century.
Right. Well, right. I knew that. The abolition, they all came from that area. No, I knew that. And
the trolley came from Center City out to Camp William Penn because the African American soldiers, you know, and families needed to get to the camp to visit their boys, you know.
I wonder what the relationship is between that and Parker Hall on 5801 Germantown, which is where the Aces Museum is. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. And then there's a cemetery. There's a U.S. cemetery that's in West Oak Lane,
right?
Just south of Cheltenham Avenue, you know, which is the burial ground for the colored troops.
Yeah, we knew that. Yeah, the guy that runs that comes and talks to us.
Yeah. So there's, I don't know, 300 or something veterans from that, you know, brigade.
I believe that's also run by the Park Service, the National Park Service as well.
It's
That's what
funny, people don't know about it. It's the cemetery that's inside this neighborhood in West Oak Lane.
We're blowing Amara's mind.
It's a beautiful federal cemetery. It's pristine. It's beautifully taken care of. You know, once a year, Memorial Day, they have an honor guard there and all that for
Right.
black soldiers.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah.
I went to Arcadia. I lived in Glenside for 4 years, and I didn't know any of that. This is all brand new information to me. I didn't even know there was connections to the Underground Railroad there.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a couple black families. They were trying to get the area certified as a national historical area. You know, this was, I don't know, 40 years ago or something. You know, they're working on it. You know, they never, and the township was working on it too, to try to get some sort of recognition. So there's a museum that's in Lamont, which is open on, well, it's open, I don't know, maybe once a month or something. And it's a museum for the Camp William Penn. So there are artifacts from the old colored training grounds. So it's photographs and pictures and banners and, muskets and whatnot. So
I'll have to go check it out sometime.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
Look up Camp William Penn on Google, and you'll get a lot of connections. There's
maybe we can have an AI trip to the ACES Museum too. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, we always had a lot of functions there, but they're doing a lot of fundraising at the moment. It's tough for them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Really tough. It's always tough.
Museums are really struggling right now. Yeah.
But people are always trying to pull down the building. But Dr. Hankins, I mean, her parents met at a civil rights demonstration, and her father was a nephew of Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
So I think Dr. Althea just came out fighting, and I can tell you, whenever I'm around her, I feel like I've been in a hurricane. she's great, but I couldn't fight the way she does. It's like, oh my gosh. But she's always fighting. She's amazing. Yeah. But Parker Hall was the stop for colored troops before they went off